Odyssey LC5 Empyrean Elite. Same case, sort of. I mean, slightly different dimensions, but yeah. Hey, I'm Josh. Welcome to the first impressions of the Meze Empyrean Elites. These are currently Meze's flagship headphone. They come in at a flagship price tag, and today I'm going to be talking about them. Coming up in the future, I will be doing a full review as well as a comparison against some other flagship headphones like the LCD5 and the Diana TC from Abyss. Now, this headphone was loaned to me by Meze, but as always, all thoughts and opinions are of course my own. I want to talk about the design first because the design of this headphone, I gotta admit, I really love the design. The review of the Empyrean, which happened actually a few years ago at this point, I don't think I quite appreciated this much as it deserved, I don't think. Because this time when I'm going through this checklist of what makes for good design, I realized that this basically checks every box. Now, this is a big looking headphone, but it's actually only about 430 grams, which is not that crazy for a flagship headphone. It's not the lightest out there, but it's also not the heaviest. It's got a decent, solid feeling to it, but without being too heavy, which is good. The pads are huge and universal fit. I'll talk about the pads in a second, actually. The comfort of this headphone is amazing. The one and only complaint I have about it so far is that it does get a little bit warm, a little bit faster than some other headphones. But then you have the design, which looks super strange and sort of alien-like, but I actually really like the aesthetics of it because this is one of the, in my opinion, few flagship headphones that are out right now that really look like high-end products. Anybody would spot this without even being a headphone person as being a high-end product. And if I were to put my money towards a high-end product, I would want it to look like that. I think that for design itself, appearance-wise, I think the HT820 looks incredible. The HE1 looks incredible. This looks incredible. But the cool part about this one in particular is that it's effective design. So one, it's using these relatively lightweight but quality materials like carbon fiber on the headband, for example. But then you have this weird head shape for the headphone strap, but it actually feels really comfortable. And then you have these huge kind of teardrop shaped pads, which feel amazing on the head. And this results in one of the more comfortable headphones that I've tried, at least in terms of like a big planar. Now, all those compliments being said, that is all in the realm of like your experience when you're wearing this headphone. The one downside to this headphone though, is that they do look ridiculous. They're huge. These aren't even the thicker pads. They have these Alcantara pads, which are actually thicker than these hybrid pads right here. But it's a big headphone. Like it's, so the unit that I received came with two cables, a 1/4 inch and an XLR, and two pads, the Alcantara and the hybrid pads. Both are of top-notch quality. These are probably the best made pads, I think, in the business. They are press fit with metal grills, and replacing these pads is actually not terribly expensive compared to some other brands, which as a user might be nice. They also don't have a direction, so they will fit on either the left or the right cup. So then you have the sound quality. I think what I'd like to focus on today is the improvements of sound over the original Empyrean, but it will be kind of mixing in some other stuff. And then there's some areas that I haven't quite figured out yet that I want to save for the full review. Starting off, this is definitely a notable improvement over the Empyrean, which had, in my opinion, and I think a lot of other reviewers' opinions, some kind of fatal flaws or things that weren't so great compared to some other things in the industry. Now, the original Empyrean had a little bit of a looseness to the mid bass. It seemed a little bit bloated, a little bit boxy, kind of boomy almost. It wasn't terrible, but for what you would pay for a $3,000 headphone, it wasn't great. Now, this is more of the tightened, buttoned up, older brother version of that bass. It's more refined. They've controlled that a lot more to where it's not really an issue anymore. But I actually think that the bass quantity has actually been slightly reduced and is more even with the rest of the field, so it doesn't seem so heavy on the low end compared to the original Empyrean. Sub bass so far does seem pretty good. It's not the strongest headphone that I've heard for sub bass, but it's definitely not anything that I would complain about, especially given the current line of flagship headphones, which are all not super crazy heavy on bass. I still think that one of the best bass performing headphones that I don't think has really been topped, for me at least, is something like an LCD4. I don't think any of the current flagships take over that crown from Odyssey yet. Mid-range is something that I will say is good, but I want to cover it in the full review. I have a lot to say about it. It's a very nuanced conversation, and I really want to make sure that I have what I really think about it kind of honed down and figured out. So bass response is good, mid-range is good. Treble and detail though. And these I'm kind of placing together because I feel like the original Empyrean was pretty dark, a little bit too dark. This brightens up the top end a little bit. It seems to be a little bit more forward than what I remember the Empyrean being. But I would say that if you're looking for the most amount of detail for the money, this is probably not the headphone that I would direct your cash to. This is a very enjoyable, engaging, smooth sound signature. I would not be expecting to really get this super transient top end or super clinical treble response from this headphone. Even on some really precise and active amplifiers, I do feel like I'm hitting a little bit of a ceiling for detail, and I just can't get past it. And it just doesn't provide quite as much information as some other headphones definitely can. Sound staging for this is relatively interesting because the pads actually change it quite a bit. The thickness of the pad and the material difference seems to play a big part to this because I think the Alcantaras actually soundstage a bit wider, but they also have a weird effect to the soundstage where you feel like it's more closed in on the open end. It doesn't sound quite as boundaryless on the back end, even though the sound stage is widened relative to the hybrid pads. These sound more intimate, but they also seem less closed on the back end, even though the total width for both, I think that the Alcantara pads are a little bit wider on the widest of sounds. That being said, sort of a disappointing thing for me is that none of the flagships right now, including the Elite, are really that amazing for soundstage. They're all good, but none of them really shock me and blow me away with the sound staging capability. They're all very much a headphone-like experience. They don't really extend super far beyond. Now, I do know that sound staging is not everything for a headphone, but yeah, I would, all of these flagships actually that I currently have here, I would love to get more soundstage out of, the Elite included. So some additional thoughts. On the web page for this headphone, it actually talks about how this is designed for long listening sessions. Now, typically with headphones, I completely disregard the product page because it's mostly just the companies kind of just complimenting themselves, and it's not really relevant to what the headphone actually truly sounds like in my experience. But this is actually a point that I would really agree with. This is a headphone that is comfortable and has an easy sound to it. It's very easy to understand. It's very easy to listen to. It is not fatiguing at all. If you're a person who really likes a chill sound signature and you listen for a long time, if that is you, I do think you should be keeping an eye on this as a potential headphone if you're looking in the high-end market. So my conclusion so far, I've only had about a day of listening to this. Like I said, this is only a first impressions. I definitely want to listen to this more, understand it more, and compare it more to different things. This is a clear improvement over the standard Empyrean. If you like a more even balanced sound signature, this sounds a little bit more clinical, a little bit cleaner, a little bit more towards the hi-fi sound, in my opinion. Yeah, I'll have a lot more thoughts in the full review. Subscribe for that if you would like. I'd love to see you there. So I will have a lot more thoughts in the full review. Thank you very much for watching. Till the next video, I'm Josh, signing off. Peace.